Yeah, so much has
Yeah,
happened since we've last talked.
it's been crazy, hasn't it? It's been a crazy season as things have been transitioning and, um, yeah, a lot has even happened in the last 12 hours, right? Like, we
Oof.
now know what's coming.
Yeah.
The hype is real. Spoiler season is in our sights, at least I feel like they are. Um, and I'm excited. I'm extremely nervous to see what comes in April and May, but I'm excited.
Oh, for
So
sure. And isn't it insane that even though the artwork got released yesterday, the all the product was already sold out from the beginning. Can you imagine if it was
oh,
people didn't even want, like sea creatures
right.
and some random
It'd be a
artwork that
garbage
was
set, right?
under the
It'd be
sea theme?
awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it just being an awful set. It's been fun to see all the speculation with light and dark.
Mhm.
James White has said in an interview with Team Covenant that this is, rounding out the game, if you will, or adding that kind of final component. We've, been playing only part of the game. We've been playing, I call it beginner mode. So it's going to add, I assume, further complexity.
Mm.
Um, That'd be my assumption or something, but I'm excited to see what is added and when we find that out, and are they gonna spoil that early and we have to start, like with Arcane Rising, they added arcane damage, like, that was a whole thing, like, how am I gonna block this? What are we gonna do? You
Exactly.
know?
It's
It's
like
gonna
an
be so
added layer
overpowered.
of
Right.
complexity to the game, and yeah, what they're gonna do next, who knows? I mean, with the dark and light, are you gonna have to pick a side? Could you play like dark Dorinthia and light Dorinthia, and the dark and light have
Yeah.
different abilities to them? And I think for sure the graveyard mechanics. I was talking to Kale from Dead Summer Art a while back, and he thought that there was going to be more graveyard mechanics, and with this dark, you know,
Interesting.
what is it? People. What are they? It looks like they're demons in a sense. That
Yeah.
definitely looks like some graveyard mechanic type stuff.
You look at some of the Crucible cards, right? Like, there's definitely some darker creatures, demonic creatures in there.
Mhm.
I've been hearing people saying that maybe pitch values uh, vary, like light versus darkness. Maybe yellow is kind of in between, but maybe red is more, dark side, blue's more light side. Who knows, man? Maybe there's another. I mean, it looks like there's angels and demons. I think you kind of hit it spot on. So, is there going to be some kind of mechanism, maybe health regen or something like that? I mean, it just feels like sky's the limit or potentials are limitless.
Yeah.
And I'm super stoked to see that there's actually the inclusion of unlimited. I've been saying since day one, like, they need to do unlimited with this because the fact of the matter is, first edition will sell out instantly. Um, I, People understand like what comes in first edition. People want cold foils. Even players want cold foils. What's going
Yeah.
to be the challenge is, can they afford to pay for it? And is this just going to be, essentially on release? Are we going to have collector boxes and then like player boxes, right?
Yep.
Players for the average Joe. My biggest concern, as always, is as long as players can get their cards, like, I'm good. But it does prove to be exceptionally challenging for me because I'm like, well, what do I do with all this first edition product or whatever amount of first edition product? Like, how do I price it? Being somebody who is trying to not price people out of the marketplace, right?
Yeah, especially with the
Um,
market how it is, and how first edition and how collectors have been just attacking it in general. And you prove a good point. I mean, it feels like there's going to be different release days, you know? So April 30th is going to be the release date for collectors and investors. And then,
right.
in May 20th is going to be the release date for players in a sense. And that's not said. It just feels that way, that
That's the
all
way
of
it
the stuff
feels.
is just depleted. All of it is not going to be available. And can you imagine the shops that are getting these boxes, and essentially they're getting boxes of gold, and they're told to sell it for bronze when they could literally
Eh,
sell it, and that seems tough. And I've seen you in the past where you've had Crucible War and you're like, well, I've got to open this because that's the type of online store I am. And I look at that and I just cringe. I'm like, oh man, I can't imagine just
I'm
the
doing
pain.
a
Is there pain of opening? I'm just putting that
no
my
because
feelings onto you, but
so
maybe
I
it's
think it's important to
bittersweet.
know. it is bittersweet. I think that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I'm not an investor, I'm not a collector. I personally I don't have a collection. I sell my collection to everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, like, to, like, feel like some higher up. It's just I don't have the capacity to play the game so much because I'm so busy trying to fulfill, like, orders and, as the business continues to grow, I have less and less time. Like, I got Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, I'm, like, super stoked to play it, was you know, putting all the pieces together, punching out cardboard yesterday. I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to play this. Like, I'm really looking forward to it, but I have to set aside like this time. There's my work, the side business, Midtown Merchant, and then family kind of comes before all of that. And so I'm like trying to, okay, where's Mitch time to just play a game and sit down and hang out with other individuals, or even just like, you've invited like, hey, we should just play a game online.
Mm.
I have two fears. I'm going to be garbage and then it'll be live streamed for everybody to see, or like I'll just make some like hideous mistake. But like the fact of the matter is, we could probably just have like a jank game, and it's just like the most obnoxious game of the world. But I am so inexperienced at play right now. I just know the cards enough, I, because I'm constantly looking at them.
My life
So
hack to
it is
that is
weird.
play like a really easy hero. Definitely someone from Welcome to
Oh
Wrath.
sure,
I mean, I play Bravo, and literally that's I block with three of my cards, and I attack with my hammer every turn.
right.
That's it, and that's a
Yep,
strategy, and it's a good strategy, honestly, because it's a fatigue way
works
where you
well.
yep you just put on
Works well with
pressure
brute.
while
Well,
blocking. Yeah, but but yeah,
I
if
like to.
you picked up Wizard or what is it Dash, I played a game against someone who was insane at the game, and they played a Data Doll, and they did really well, man. It was crazy. They did 20 things on their turn, right? And they were doing all these like moves and shooting me a bunch of times, and then they're like, "Okay, are you done?" And I was like, "Okay, my turn. I'll attack you with my hammer, 6 damage. All right, your turn." Like it's
Yeah, yeah. It is one of those things that um I still love watching people play it. I just haven't had the time to kind of set it aside. So coming back around, I guess, to Open and Crew, I don't buy at MSRP. I do not buy, below market. I buy at distribution pricing. And I think this kind of comes around to what you're saying.
hmm
I'm paying pennies for a product that is worth gold.
yeah.
And it really puts us in a tough spot in two ways. I know shops that um, really want to sell product at $80, right? You want to sell first edition product $80. You even look at TC, and before like things blew up, they had pre-orders. People, did their subscription. They're paying MSRP like 90 something dollars for a box.
hmm
That's a steal. Like
Yeah.
if you think about first edition product, you think about just think where Arcane is right now. Don't even think about Crucible. It's a supplementary set. It's although it's first edition, has cold foils. It's a really weird set. It doesn't really feel like the ROI is there.
hmm
But when it comes to it's fun to open. I mean, it is the riskiest set to open. It feels like there's no consistency to it.
Because
You
what
can
is
open
it?
a
If you
case
get
that is,
Shiana, then you're gold, but if you don't, then it's bust.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you craft like you can craft maybe a legendary, so you get like a crewnic, you maybe get like a cold foil equipment. You might have broken even. No, I don't even think you. No, even then you haven't broken even. So it's just like it almost feels like opening alpha boxes of Welcome to Wrath, right? Like it just doesn't really. You just watching people open boxes, fabled hunters, and they're going for it. And I feel so bad. Like I'm just like maybe they'll get a heart one day. What now? Like you get a heart, you didn't break even. I mean, maybe I guess after you get a whole bunch of majestic foils and this, that, and the other. But if an average of one majestic foil per case, I mean, unless it's a Enlightened Strike gets you one third of a box. Doesn't
Yeah.
even or half a box, in terms of value right now.
I will
So
say though, Saint with Fable Hunters, I don't feel bad for him because of
no,
what all the stuff that he's purchased and how much has gone up. He's doing good on in
he's
life,
doing okay.
but honestly, I think he's one of the best things that could happen for the game investor wise,
Mhm.
where news comes out that an investor purchases, and then he's making video and content where he's
Yep.
saying, "Hey, I love this game because I have really fond memories of my childhood," or he didn't say childhood, but he said, "I have fond memories in the past with me playing games, and this feels like Street Fighter 2, and this feels like
Right.
a really fun game mechanics that I remember from other games that I like, and he likes the artwork and all that stuff. And I never heard in
Yeah.
any of his videos about, oh, this is a great long-term investment. I'm gonna really
Yeah.
maximize my gains with this. No, he's saying, hey,
It's
I
just
like
having
this
fun.
because I love the game and I love the product, and that's really cool to see. But yeah, it is it is tough when you see those box openings, and I've seen it on other channels where
Alpha
there's
investments.
yeah, and there's just there's not value. The
Yeah.
amount of what is it? The risk that you're incurring. What is that called? Is gambler's premium? Is just too much.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't feel entirely, it just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking
Mm,
for an investment, you're hoping to crack, a heart or maybe a cold foil legendary. It feels risky and hard. I mean, even people, this is not anybody that I'm trying to get on in the unseals group, but they're paying for a pack of alpha at a time. And it just like I've actually done a box battle before with Jason from Deck Edge. I was like, I don't get why people do it. And then you do it and you're like, wow, that's a rush. Like even like
mhm.
on unlimited boxes, I just only spent 45, $50. But you're just sitting there. There was actually a crew box before they went up and ended up, doing fine. But it was just one, oh no, that was actually something else. That was from his pack openings for his group. But
Mhm.
it was I can't remember, but ended up doing one on an unlimited box. That's what it was. And even then it just felt like a rush. And I was like, okay, I get it. I can't even imagine on an alpha pack, like, gosh, if I crack a cold foil, that'd be amazing, right?
Yeah.
So even if it's in equipment, like it just feels good. So um, I think my concern with all of Monarch, as I've talked to people in the industry, different shops, my biggest concern of late and until this week, now that I've heard of Unlimited's on the way, is just investors and those who have money, collectors even, people who are wanting to round out their collection, they are not like they could buy out the entire player base.
Mhm.
But knowing and I think that what's going to be challenging for some is they're going to be collectors that are still going to get bought out. People that are not whales, but they're kind of in between. I've been trying to find a term between a dolphin and a whale. I haven't found the
An
majestic
octopus?
animal yet. Yeah, I mean, hey, those guys, they're quite agile. They can go anywhere. Maybe just something that's middleweight, in between those two levels. I guess a dolphin's kind of between a fish and a whale, so that works.
I love when
But
Louis talked about that on his channel. Was it Kitchen Table TCG? That I just cracked up so much, and it's just a funny way of saying, "Hey, be a dolphin, another sea creature." And I
yeah,
saw other people say, "I want to be a sea urchin," or "I'm gonna starfish."
yeah, comment sections are always the best. Well, most of the time. It depends, I guess, what channel you're on, but that's a good comment section right there.
Yeah.
Um,
But you
so
have a really good point. Some people might not be in this game for investment purposes, but if they're told that in the past, the last 3 boxes that had a golden seal became ridiculously high in value in a very short amount of time, even though
yeah,
somebody might not be an investor, if they're looking at their boxes and they say, "Hey, I could wait 2 months and then this box could be 2, 3, 4 times what it's worth,"
yeah,
there's literally no incentive for you to open your product. There's
yeah.
no incentive.
Yeah, and I've talked to a few players who are like, I'm just gonna buy it to fund my fab stuff, right? Like I'm just gonna buy it just to fund my unlimited boxes. And I think that's actually what
Exactly.
people don't realize. If you get a hand on pre-orders, and this is pure speculation, so this is just based on what I've seen so far. When Crucible went out of print, when they were like, all right, hey, there's no more coming. I mean, boxes went what from they were going for maybe $100, 125 at that point because of their scarcity to 300 in a weekend to 600 in a week
Yep.
or two. Like, I don't think, and that's with Crew. Crew is a weird set again. Remember, it's supplementary, doesn't have, and it's only 10 cards per pack. So a lot of people are still kind of iffy on it, but they're investors or people looking to flip product or just kind of find a way to get into the market. I'm really curious to see what will happen with Monarch. I don't think they short printed it intentionally, which is what a lot of people feel like. But I do feel like there's such high demand that let's say they printed just for the states 100 to 200K boxes.
Mhm.
They print that much, they're still going to sell out in a week or less.
For
Like the
sure.
demand's just exceptional. Um, Now pair that with Cardamundi, pair that with COVID restrictions, what if they don't have 100 boxes for the States? What if, let's say, they have 200 for the entire world or a quarter of a million boxes? And I hope it's not that little. I'm again pure speculation, but based on what I'm hearing from individuals who have allocation or numbers already, and these are just rough numbers based on what distributors are being told they're going to get, um, it could be less than that, you know? So I think that we might end up having a significant demand need for first edition product. And unfortunately, they're going to be collectors who get frustrated. Like, look, I've been collecting this game since alpha. I have all of alpha. I have all of first edition, Arcane Rising, all of first edition crew. And now you're telling me it's going to be physically impossible for me to acquire the cards I desire for first edition Monarch.
Yeah.
And it's like, or you can acquire it if you have the pocket for it. And I think that's going to be a challenge for some. I think there's going to be some growing pains with that. I think there's going to be individuals that maybe sell their collection at that point, like this is just too much of a hassle. Because I'm new to the collector side of things. I don't come from that background, but there are people that are very much desire to have that full collection, one of each card, and I just don't see how that's sustainable with the demand for first edition boxes.
Yeah.
Unlimited, sure, but if
Well,
I'm a store, I order 1,000 boxes, I get 80, or I get, let's say, 200, and I have pre-orders for 150 boxes. I'm gonna probably keep 50 boxes for my store and then fulfill my pre-orders, right?
yeah, and I don't blame
So
any store that is doing that because, hey, I mean, as well, especially if you're not taking them from people who pre-ordered. I mean, it's something where you're literally given a bar of gold, and I can't imagine as a store being in that conflict. And I heard I was talking to Jason. You talked about him earlier, but you got me
yeah,
onto him, and he
Jason's
seems
awesome.
yeah. I mean, both of you guys, and that's why I try to plug you guys a lot, is because you seem like the most ethical, upright people in the community of well, and that's just my perspective. But when I've talked to you guys, and he was selling crew for I think
Yeah,
$80 to his patrons,
$80.
and it was
Yeah,
300 at the time. I can't
right.
imagine being in that position. I mean, that's so much money on the table, and he did it because he said, "Hey, this is the right thing to do. People believed in me, so I'm gonna hook people up when I get the product. I'm not gonna do that to people."
Or to
But it's frustrating to me. I think the local game stores and other places that are um, just on the small scale. I don't think that they've really reaped the benefits as much as some big name stores that I don't want to I don't want to
We
mention.
know who you're talking about. We
Everyone
know
knows
who
who
you're
I'm
talking
talking about,
about.
but I'm just
Yeah,
saying that they
yeah.
have just milked the shit out of the cow. They have just milked
Well, even
a
like
ton.
Miniature Market, which is not who you're talking about, Miniature Market is already selling or has pre-order for Monarch or was selling like Crew at like an exceptionally high value. I think it
Really?
was Monarch first edition boxes like $200-300. And I don't quote me on that, but I remember hearing that I think through the Wall Street channel and Discord that like even Miniature Market's pricing high. I think this is what, and again, I'm not trying to. I don't think I have the power to do this, but I don't want to influence the marketplace. I am a let's say and I mentioned this in a Facebook message or a Facebook string on the discussion channel. I'm a store. I am told let's say I pre-ordered 2,000 to 1,000 boxes. They come back and say, "Hey, Mitch, you're going to get 8%." So that tells me two things. Maybe they didn't print enough, or maybe they didn't print enough, and there's not enough like supply, right?
Mm,
So what that tells me, just basic economics, I have a store to supply goods with. I have people interested in product. I have pre-orders to fulfill for my game store. Maybe the people that are loyal to my game store, my locals, I give them the product at MSRP, which I think is completely fair, right? You
mhm.
buy Magic most of the time at MSRP anyways, um, unless you're like part of some program like Alpha Investments or something like that. Um, but I mean, and I know that's varying right now because of the era of Magic, but just in general, for a card game like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, the top three, you're going to be paying MSRP most of the time, unless you're going to eBay.
Mhm.
So if we know that it sells out within a week or two, and in history says, well, when this sells out, it skyrockets pricing. What am I supposed to do when a random guy off of Facebook who knows I'm an LGS comes to me and says, "Hey, dude, like I heard you have some boxes still. I'm willing to pay you $500 for it." Like, What do you
Yeah.
do? And for me personally, like, so I'm talking about getting, Monarch. I crack first edition cases. Um, I put them on my site. I know historically speaking, first edition cold foils are selling anywhere between $800 to $1,200 right now.
Yep.
What am I supposed to price that at? If I know limited's coming in 30 days, what do I do? And I think that's kind of like coming back to ethics, like that's kind of the dynamic I'm in. I sell a card at $500, some guy is just gonna buy it off of me and flip it for 800 to 1,000.
Oh, for
So
sure.
it's just this weird dynamic of, okay, I sell to a guy online, he gets mad at me because I'm selling him to at $125 a box, but in reality, he could hold it for a month and sell it for 600. And why should I just give that guy $500 because he just found my boxes and I had them in stock? And so it's just really hard spot to be in of I want players to have product. I want players to be able to play with like fancy cards.
Mhm.
But I know players, if I'm a player, this is what I would do. I'd get cold foils, hold on them, play with them, show them off, but keep them in good condition and then sell them when I want to buy more product, right? Like it's just a means to fund the game in a way if I'm a true player and I really don't like I have a lot of people like I just want the vanilla cards. Like I'll sell you all my rainbow foils. I just want cards to play with and I want to fund my game and not have to break my wallet to do it. And I think there's going to be a similar mindset here of like, I hate to put a premium on premium cards, but like, it's almost like I need to differentiate. Here's the players area of Midtown Merchant. And like, if you need to invest in the game or you want fancy things, you like shiny toys, like go over here and buy a Lambo. Like,
Like
I
a
don't know how else
unique
to put it.
section, like a investors
I don't
part
know.
of it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
that's
Yeah.
not really
Or,
going
or put
with
them
your
in
brand, you
auction.
know? But
Yeah.
I don't know. I do think though maybe there is a way where they could make a differentiated product. I mean, the first edition product in my mind, I don't know why that's $100 product. I would imagine if what if they just made the first edition product like $100 or like a 150 or $200? And I know that sucks, but imagine
Oh, so set the MSRP higher.
if they did that though, right? Then you know
I
the
mean, it's at
unlimited
96,
yeah, the
right? Or
unlimited
90.
boxes, you could make them a
You
lot
could go
cheaper.
lower.
You could make them
Yeah.
like $60 boxes for the players. So the
Yeah.
players would be happy. They'd say, "Okay, basically the investors and collectors are paying for me to play the game."
Yeah. And
But
that's a valid point. So right now for MTG, like you pay more for collector boxes as a retailer, right?
yeah.
Because there's a premium, and I actually do think that there would be value in that, and then that just naturally beats this ceiling of where the card's at, right? So if I'm buying product from, and I think that's ultimately the hard ethics issue for me. I pay the same amount from distribution for first edition as I do for unlimited. And this is
Wow,
hard on
really?
distributors. Yeah, there's no
Wow.
differentiation on pricing right now. Now that could change. I don't know why it would, but it could. Maybe it's just a few dollars. But like there shouldn't be a difference in like there should be a difference in product pricing both because distributors are having to deal with this huge influx of desire and demand for
Mhm.
flesh and blood, and they're having to fulfill all the calls. I can't imagine how frustrating it is right now. I call my PhD guy on a weekly basis, like, "Hey, how we doing? Like, do I need to up my order? What are you hearing? Like, is this number going to be enough for me to get at least this much? Like, what do I need to do?" And I can't imagine just getting constant calls. Hey, I heard there's this hot new product. I want to get dibs on this next set. They just announced that Monarch release yesterday, so you're gonna have a whole bunch of people going into LGS saying, "Hey, have you guys done Flesh and Blood yet? Like, I want to get some of that." And so they call, distributor and get set up with them and say, "Hey," they go through all that work and like, "I want to get 50 boxes,"
Mm.
and it's just gonna be like people with Pokemon, like, "Well, I can get you like 2 cases, I can get you 8 boxes," like
Yeah.
it's just gonna be that continual thing,
Well, and the
and then
scary
you have
thing
people,
too is
yeah,
the hero decks from Welcome to Wrath apparently are now money. So are people going to be scared about
they're alpha,
Monarch hero
but
decks going to be something and then no
there's
one's going to open
10,000 of them
anything?
now. I
Huh?
mean, I guess like in the scheme of them, there's not. I thought there was like what, like 10,000 hero decks,
Yeah, for Welcome to
but
Wrath. That's
across
so
four
small.
different heroes. So you think about that, it is quite small, but it took them a while. It took them over a year to sell out of the hero deck.
Yeah. Well,
That's at
sealed
10K
ones,
though. That's going to go exponentially more.
you think?
Um, well, no, I'm just saying, like, I would assume they'd print these blitz decks, knowing the current demand of the game. You can't print 10,000 of these. Like,
Oh
if
no.
we're
Yeah,
talking
it's got to
about
be
a,
way
a
more.
100,000 boxes in the states selling out, like 10,000 hero decks is nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, one thing that it is interesting too is that so Welcome to Wrath and Arcane and a lot of Crew, I believe, that stuff was opened. I feel for the most part, people just open the boxes because it,
yeah,
for the most part, especially Welcome to
I
Wrath and
think Crew was
Arcane.
different because we just saw the spike of like Alpha and Arcane Rising, right? And they're like,
Hmm.
well, if I hold first edition, maybe it'll go up.
Yeah,
But I would agree with you.
but now with Monarch, there's going to be so much more supply that people just keep sealed, I feel, and maybe that will
Yeah,
limit the amount of growth it could be because if people see it spike, because everyone in their mother is pre-ordering this thing, having the same thing in mind, buy it now, sell it in 2 to 3 months, and in 2 to 3 months, if everyone starts flooding the market with it, I mean,
it could
I
drop then.
yeah, it's going to drop or it's going to prevent people from prevent that box from really going crazy, but and again, this is just entertainment, and we're not
I'll be
speculating.
cracking it.
We're just
I'll
talking.
be cracking it.
You'll be cracking.
So
You'll be reducing the
I don't
total
know how
supply in
much
the
I'm
market.
cracking though. I'll like I like to be in the first in the marketplace, and there's kind of two things there. Like it, I don't think every single store has distribution set up. So I usually get product the day of release.
Hmm.
So let's say I get it on Thursday or Friday, right? And then I crack product that evening, put it up, and then we have it live. But I don't think I'm going to be cracking, let's say 10, 20 like boxes day one, because I kind of need to get a feel for it. If I put stuff out and it sells out like in an hour, well, hell, I probably didn't price it right.
Yeah,
Um, and it's going to be exceptionally difficult to kind of see where things land. Um, the other thing though is there's going to be so much I think order that I need to open some so I can just break even and not be floating so much cash. So it'll be interesting. That's pending I actually get boxes that I desire and the quantity I desire. Um, so I've been having like this torn kind of thing of I never saw I think Flesh and Blood when I envisioned the mission of Midtown Merchant being such a highly desired product that people are willing to pay. Like they come, I have random people message me, "Hey, dude, you getting any like product?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Well, can I buy boxes from you?" Like, no, like because of retailer policy, I can't sell boxes. Like, well, can I
hmm.
buy case breaks from you? Like, I'll just buy the whole case and I'll just pay you like for a case break and you can open it live.
Well, that is
And I'm
kind of
like,
a workaround, right? Because then literally
it
they bought
is,
it and then you were opening it.
yeah, and like, but it's really like essentially an. I have
Is it a
this hard
gray
thing.
area?
I want to help. It's not a gray area. I can absolutely do it. Um, a guy buys a let's say I get this is just a rough number. I have no idea how many I'm gonna get. Let's say I get 50 cases.
Hmm.
That'd be great. I'd be happy with 50 cases, maybe more, maybe less, who knows. Um, a guy goes, I'll buy five of those cases. So I'll buy 1/10 of your cases and I'll pay a premium for them. So I have to go, okay, like that's nice money. I'll pay premium. Let's say the premium is what a current box per is right now or just below that. Um, there are kind of two thoughts here. That guy is probably getting a hell of a deal because the cases are going to be worth less than the value of the product inside, I would assume. Especially when you buy a case, you typically there's typical pull rates. So let's pull, say you pull a legendary per one.
Hmm.
Like legendaries will likely go between 5 to 1,500 within the first month, I would think. I don't know why they wouldn't, but let's say, especially if you're talking about scarcity of product in the marketplace,
Cold
they're
foils?
going to be cold foils.
Mm.
Yeah, because they're gonna be cold foil legendaries on this. Let's say you crack a Fable. What does a Fable go for? If boxes are 600, like what do you look at like Arcane Rising boxes are what right now? Like around a
I don't even
thousand
know.
dollars a box.
Yeah, something like that.
So yeah, so it's just going to be crazy to like kind of look at the market day one and be like, what do we even price these things at? But long story short, that guy takes 1/10 of my product. What does that mean for the individuals, collectors, players who want to grab those cards? One guy
Yeah.
is just taking a like a corner of the market for himself. And it's not that I don't want to help people out or that I don't want to get people access to product. It's just it's hard to make these decisions in the balance of there's plenty of money getting injected in the game. How do you balance paying yourself, paying for the product that you've invested in and breaking even at least on that front, and then also supplying people the cards they need. Um,
Yeah, it
so
seems like a very difficult dance that I'm very happy multiple times that I'm not having to deal
I'm
with
just gonna
because that seems
ask you for
so
your
tough.
input.
Yeah, sure.
So, what do you do, Bronson? You got players wanting cards. They want cold foils, but they don't want to pay for cold foil prices. They're likely gonna. I mean, they could buy them at a great price, but
Hmm.
then that just gives them room for them to grow, and that way they can, invest in more flesh and blood product, hypothetically growing the game more. So it and do you give that to a player or to a potential investor, or do you like how do you figure all that out? Do you auction it off? Like what do you do with these high end values? I'm not worried about like the rainbow foil majestics. I'm really worried about cold foils, and I'm worried about fables. Like what do you do with those?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a dual thing where you could sell one box to two people and say, okay, whatever cold foil comes, then you get it. Whatever other stuff, the player gets it. So you have a player and a collect. But that's even tough breakout. I mean, you could try to limit the amount that each person buys, but even still, that's kind of weird, and that doesn't
Yeah.
really pan out most of the time. And sometimes the players just want to play the cards, and they don't want to pay $600 for
Right.
a case break or a box opening, and not receive the value that they could have. I mean, in any scenario, I think it has to be something where the collectors of the game or investors are paying you more money than the players, and then the players get a discount on their thing. But how you do that ethically and logically, and as a
Yeah.
store, I don't even know. And I was talking earlier, and the biggest thing is, yeah, when stores get this first edition box, as a store owner, it's just the temptation of taking that box and just shoving it under your mattress and just forgetting about it is just too big. And it's just, if a person comes in your store saying, hey, oh yeah, they sold out, which is a really good excuse. And then say, hey, come
Right.
back in 3 months when Unlimited comes out, and it's tough. And I have every faith in Legend Story Studios. They've proven themselves in the past, and
I would
and I
agree.
I have so much faith that they're gonna do the right thing. It's just what we've been. I feel that all of us are really justified in thinking the way we are because literally it's Wile E. Coyote running off the cliff. We're seeing this thing transpire out in there where
Right.
all this product is just deleted in December 2020 for a product that hasn't even been printed in April
Right.
2021. So I mean, what other assumption are we going to have other than there's literally going to be no product out there? And
Yeah.
it's a cluster, man. And I mean, one thing that I with you talking about poll rates and such, I kind of thought, do you think they would ratchet the cold foil pull rates way back? So let's say you get one cold foil in a case. I mean, because the thing
Oh,
is,
instead of equipments as well? Because you
yeah,
used to get at least what, 1 cold foil equipment per box? Is that what it was?
yeah,
And then
per
you would get
box.
potentially a legendary per case.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know, I that's an interesting thing,
because
an
they haven't
interesting
said anything
thought.
about that, right? They haven't said anything about these are the poll rates. In the past, they did.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's
and
the only way I could think that they'd still make those pieces collectible, but without
mhm,
making the boxes too much. Because if you're gambling on a box and you say, okay, there's a 1 in 8 chance that this is going to have a cold foil card in it, then you've really, then it's
yeah.
not as much of a sure thing with that box.
I I don't know if I'd be curious to see if they change that. I do feel like they've changed stuff with Unlimited. I did not open a lot of alpha, but I've seen openings, and it's a lot of it's just individual boxes, right? Like, it's not cases.
Hmm.
Um, but right now, I feel like every 2 boxes has a legendary. Not every case, but, like, every 2 boxes. So if I open a case, I feel like it's a 50-50 chance I open 2 legendaries. Like, I've opened up multiple Arcane Unlimited, multiple Welcome to Wrath Unlimited, and I feel like I'm pulling 2 legendaries consistently.
Hmm,
Like, if I like so I just had 20 boxes of Arcane that I opened in the last week.
that sounds awesome.
It was fun. I also have my wife has been helping too because there's just so much work to get done in the evenings, and so she's really good at like organizing and cracking packs. And David from Unison Games is sworn by like have your your partner, your woman, whoever, just open packs with you. Trust me, it'll be worth it. I mean, my wife has opened like a Fable at this point. She every box, like I feel like every case I give her is two legendaries. So I don't know if it's just like she has golden hands. I'm not really sure. But I do know that consistently with like the 20 boxes that we opened recently, I had two Fables, five legendaries, or six legendaries.
Wow.
So if you look at that, out of five cases, two Fables and five legendaries.
Out of
That's pretty
5
good
cases?
out of five cases.
That's
So
insane.
the Fables, let's just imagine those Fables were legendaries though,
Mhm.
right? Like there you and I've noticed in the cases that I've pulled from Unlimited, usually when you pull a Fable, there's usually a legendary in that case too.
Hmm.
So at least that's been like I haven't just opened a case that's just a Fable. Um, Usually there's just some other legendary in there. So which is like insane value, right? Like you crack one of those cases, you're doing what doing well.
Oh, yeah.
So um, yeah, I don't know, man. I, I'm thinking they're going to ratchet it back to where it's a little more tight knit, and maybe it's like 0.75 to one legendary per case. Maybe you open a case that has legendary, maybe you don't. Um, and but I'm curious to kind of see how things continue to evolve with that. Um, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm stoked for spoiler season.
Oh, yeah.
So they do such a good job hyping up the next set. I'm excited for the new mechanics that it introduces. The biggest fear that I have now, we were talking about the already selling out of first edition. In theory, it hasn't sold out yet because we don't even have allocation numbers from one distributor. We
What's
have
the
rough
Oh.
allocation numbers from Southern.
Mhm.
And when I say we, I mean there are some individuals who have been purchasing the game for a long time or have extremely large orders that have already been informed that they will not be getting all of their product, or they'll be getting they can try and commit. There's no promises to getting X amount of product.
Mm.
Like I know some stores are saying, "Hey, we've got our allocation numbers." Those are not like the allocation numbers that you get the week of product releasing. Like usually a day before release, or like let's say the week of release, which is what, April 30th. I will
Yeah.
find out on that Tuesday or Wednesday what my numbers are and what they're shipping me.
That's nuts.
So I can't imagine. I'm sure an LGS is different, but like as a local game store, and that's like for me, I feel like I'm ordering a decent amount of boxes. Now, granted, most LGSs are ordering hundreds or thousands of boxes.
Mhm.
But even if I was ordering, let's say five to 1,000 boxes, 500,000 boxes, I will likely still not find out until like the week of.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's mind-boggling to me. And then that directly kind of implies what I'll be making off the product. Because so it's just this weird spot to be in.
Well, and yeah, I mean,
And so
selling
and
pre-orders, it must be the biggest. They must look at it like it's almost like a free loan in a way. I mean,
everybody's been saying that, yeah,
have
yeah.
they? I mean, I just thought because
A
if
lot
you
of people have been
say,
feeling that.
"Hey, we have 20 pre-orders," that's $4,000 if you put it at $200 a box, and then
Yeah,
if you just don't get it at at April, you just give people the money back, interest-free loan. I mean,
yeah. Well, hopefully don't spend it by then and you can give it back, right? I also know
yeah,
that some people are giving it back with 20% off, like 20% on top, like a restocking fee. And I'm just like, I don't understand how you can take my money and then instead of just giving it back to me, you actually are get charging me more money to get my money back.
that's insane.
Because in theory, like pre-orders could still eventually be fulfilled, right?
Mm,
Like that request is still put in. So if I put in 5,000 boxes for first edition first edition Monarch, they can come back and say, "Hey, Mitch, we can get you, 500." Okay, well, that request for 4,500 still sits on distribution, and they will do their best if they get more waves of product, which they have been discussing. Maybe there'll be multiple waves of Monarch, like there was of Crew. Who knows?
mm,
Like maybe there's one wave on release and then another wave with Unlimited. That would make sense to me. Because they're going to try and hit that release date, but it's going to sell out so fast. I think it's just going to be insane. And they're probably going to say, well, we should probably just print a little bit more and
yeah.
just, send it along. Or maybe they're already ahead on that print order. So,
I mean, overall, I think the way things have to work eventually, I don't know when, but people have to get burned with first edition sometime,
It's gonna
or
happen this set.
either that or it unlimited and first edition have to blend in some sort of way. But I feel that the investors and collectors have to get burned in order for them to just, that touching the stove moment and like, ow, maybe this isn't a good idea, and back off a
Yeah,
little bit so that they think, because now it's just people aren't thinking, because it's Welcome to Wrath was money,
it's
Arcane
just
Rising was
money.
money, Crucible War was money. I mean, the trend has been just insanely positive, and when it has that
Yeah,
golden sticker, it's money. So why wouldn't Monarch be the same way? And I don't
I
think it will burn
yeah.
them on Monarch. I think it'll still be fine, and that's just speculation. But I it has to happen sometime down the road of that moment, because it's just it's just insane.
I do feel like people are gonna get burned this set, but it's gonna be the people that have loads of pre-orders. I've been hearing that a lot of people are doing pre-orders across multiple different stores,
Yeah.
which I think is wise. But I think that people need to have realistic expectations based on what I'm hearing from all different sources that this set will be the most demanded set that we've had thus far.
Mm,
And whether they 5 or 10x the print run, it does not matter. Like it's because there's two sides of the coin that you've mentioned: investors, collectors. They will buy up loads of product.
yep.
You have guys coming in saying, "I'll buy 40 or 50, 100 boxes off of you." I can't imagine what Jason and the conversations he's had. Then you got a guy, and they're going to want to buy them at $80 a box. And you're like, "Come on, dude!"
Yeah.
Right? Like, and you're like, "I know you're just buying it." And I know collectors that play the game too, or sorry, investors that play the game too, and they're
Mm,
playing with unlimited but buying first edition. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be. Um, but I think that they're going to be kind of two people that get burned: people who have pre-orders, players that have pre-orders at a reasonable amount of money. Let's say they got pre-orders at MSRP or $80 a box.
hmm
They're going to get burned. And then the next up price, because is going to be $200-300 a box or $125 a box, and they're like, I don't want to fish out that money or fork that out. You're
Yeah.
also going to have people that are waiting for confirmed pre-orders. Hey, I have confirmed allocation. I am willing to sell because I know exactly the amount I'm getting. And those people are going to be paying a premium to get that. Like that's the bottom line. They're not going to be paying 125 a box, $200 a box. It's going to be $300-500 a box, I bet.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's just the trend that we're headed. Boxes were 125 last week for pre-orders, 200 this week. What's going to be in a month? And then we're still a month out from release, 2 months out from release. So uh, I think as more stuff comes down the pipeline, more news comes down, as the set proves to be hopefully exciting, there's going to be more demand for pre-orders. This is just pre-orders with the existing pool of people,
Yeah.
right? Like the hype of the new set coming out is going to draw in more people that want more
Yeah.
cards.
Especially with that artwork. I mean, gosh, they just really went. They hit for the moon with
It
it, man.
looks
It's
good.
just it's ridiculous, and it needed to
I
be that way, I
know.
think, because they've been hyping it up for such a long time. And I've read so many different things about it, and James White's talked about it, like you said. So I mean, if it wasn't this epic, it'd be kind of concerning in my mind. But I mean, yeah, I don't know what stores do. I mean, what do you think about a card redemption program? I think that is the perfect solution for those promos that we see. Because what you could do is say, hey, if you open your Monarch product and you get a bunch of commons, you can get 1,000 bulk commons and go to a local game store and trade it in for one promo card. I think that's
That
perfect.
sounds
Instead of
cool.
doing buy a box promo,
Clearly for
it's more like opening a box promo. Like you open your boxes and
yeah,
then you get a promo for, you're basically giving the people an incentive to open their booster boxes that they literally have no incentive currently for doing, you know?
right. Yeah. And I think that so I know Digimon did this recently. Digimon did like almost like a pack that came
Mhm.
within the box itself. And that
That would
was
work
cool.
too.
Like
Like
so
a
it's like it just
box
came
topper.
pre-packaged. Yeah, it was a box topper. I'm like, that would be nice. And that way, like, every single maybe it's just reduces the rarity, reduces the collectability, but there's still value. So if let's say they print 200,000 boxes, there's four different promos. Like that's still a chunk of change. That's still what, 50,000 promos of each.
Yeah.
And like that's reasonable. Maybe there's higher rarity ones than others, like more chase cards, and so that adds extra like excitement. Um, almost like a legendary one version. Maybe it's like a vanilla version of a card. So it'd be like the tunic, the crew
Mm,
neck. Maybe it's just like a non-foil legendary that would be exciting. So there's like that budget option, but it still has value. I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of different things that can do there. I do know that I know Legend Story Studios is trying to find the best solution for it, and there's a lot of things playing into this, right? So even just promos in general just need to be. I know Legend Story Studios is doing a long, hard think of how do we get these to the players. Collectors can buy them off of players if they desire, but first
mm,
and foremost, players need to be getting these. Shops just selling them out. Hey, I got an armory kit. Can't have an armory event, so we're just going to sell them. Just going to make some money. Like there could be an infinite amount of ways in which they can go about doing that. Um, Raffle it off to people who buy boxes. There's slews of ways to kind of go about it. And I
but it would
know
be nice
that
if they gave a game plan, if Legend Story Studios just flat
that's
out
what
said,
they're working
"Hey,
on.
the are yeah," because
They are
I
working on
think
that
that
right now.
that's good. That's really good to hear because now it's more the Wild West, and I believe that of course they are the game creation company. They shouldn't in normal circumstances worry about what the stores do. In my mind, that the stores do what they want. They have
It's really the
autonomy.
distributors who should be managing that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the distributors. But because of just the insane market stuff, I mean, something needs to get regulated because at this time it's as a store this whole conversation we've had for a lot of this is just dilemmas that stores have. I mean, I I can't
It's
imagine
not
being
easy.
in the and when I talk to you about it or talk to Jason or any other people who manage a business, I'm like, well, good luck. I'm glad I don't have to work with
Godspeed.
that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, there's perks, right? Like you get to open 20 boxes of
Oh,
Arcane
for sure.
Rising, right?
And that becomes
So,
your work. You know, that's awesome.
so, yeah, I know we just have a few more minutes here, but I think it's just one of those things. It'll be a good release. I think this year is going to be a year of growing pains. I think the game will grow exponentially. I'm really curious to see how COVID stuff interferes with that. I know that Legend Story Studios is trying to figure out how organized play fits into all of this because I know when they launched probably the OP stuff, they didn't imagine us still to be in a pandemic, right? They probably didn't
Mm,
think that this is going to be years or year long event, um, and that hopefully wouldn't be as impactful to the entire world as it has been. I think as a lot of us had probably initial thoughts. The other thing too is organized play looks different for a lot of different countries. If you live on an island and you can really quarantine and you can have nice border, like the borderline's a lot easier. You
yeah.
can control the pandemic a lot easier, especially with the lower population count. So Australia and New Zealand are a lot different place than us.
Yeah.
Um, you know, maybe under different government this year or some change in policies, things might change here in the states and maybe slow the pandemic, or maybe we can hang out again, who knows. um, but it's really ironic to want to play a game called Flesh and Blood in the Flesh and Blood and not being able to play it at all and still seeing the game grow exponentially. And so
Yeah.
I'm really hoping they do some online tournaments. I personally reached out to them, tried to set up a gym account so I could do OP events and get armory kits. And I'm not a brick and mortar, so under their policy, I can't host armory events.
Mm. Yeah, and
And I'm like,
that's tough, and you're right. It really is ironic. The game that you're supposed to play in the flesh and blood has become the next cryptocurrency. It's just it's
yeah,
ridiculous.
maybe that's the reason it's so expensive because it's just you can't even play it. So you
Yeah.
just might as well sell it. So,
Have you had any crazy stories with your store? I know we're gonna wrap up, but so you know,
ugh,
I mean,
crazy stories. I mean,
any
two
highlights?
fables and 20 boxes is great.
Yeah,
I would love to pull that all day. Um,
because that pays for the whole thing, right? I mean, two fables is like 1,200, five
yeah,
cases.
if I sell them, that's
Yeah,
the other thing is, 5 cases at, let's say, $50 a box. Depending on where you get them, different distributors charge more. So, no, yeah, you make money off of that, just off those 2 cards. Um, so A lot of people need to realize though I don't take all like profits home really. Like I don't take all that home. You
Oh
get just
yeah.
a small chunk of the pie. And so I think that's the other thing too. But like, oh, you got to be banking it. I'm like, even if I
No.
let's say I just did 10 grand in sales a month, which is like great, 10 grand in sales a month. I barely take home a tenth of that.
Yeah.
Maybe 15%, you know, and that's after working 30-hour, 20, 30-hour weeks on it, and sometimes 40-hour weeks, depending on what needs to be done on top of my day job. So it's just like, there's not, there's money in it, sure, but you're earning your keep. It's not just like you're printing money. Now,
Well,
buying boxes and reselling is a little bit different
mm,
because you can just store those and package them and ship them off. Like that's nothing on Jason. It's still a ton of work because he's doing more orders than I am.
yeah.
It's just a little more manageable. Um,
Yeah, putting
managing
individual cards on a site, it seems like a lot of labor. And
it's a
no, I
lot of
mean, when
it
people
is.
when I see you and I see all the prices on your store, I mean, you're making this game a lot more affordable. You're doing amazing thing in the community, and I've noticed that, from for like 2 months ago or 3 months ago when I first reached out to you, I was like, wow, like this is a cool site. I mean, you made a whole site around the lore of Flesh and Blood. That's badass, and I feel like with all the TCGs out there, you probably picked the best one. I think we both
I
picked the
agree.
best one on getting
Yeah,
into the communities
for sure.
with. It was a
For sure,
pretty
for
good play
sure.
on our part. But it is amazing how things evolve, man. I mean, just over the long months, like back in the
Yeah,
day, right? Back in the
it,
day, 4 months
it,
ago,
it feels like it's been a year. Has it
it
only been
has.
like 6 months? Um, and I think that's kind of like the big thing. I'm personally I'm not stressed about it, but I would say there's probably some anxiety. Like I don't know what to do with Monarch. Like I want to price it for players, but it's this weird thing of like I need to figure out a players guild or some way of just allowing players in. But even in at that, selling a legendary that might sell in the marketplace for $1,000 for 500 just doesn't feel right. And that's what's been happening with Unlimited too. Like I want to sell legendaries at a great price.
Yeah,
I also know that tunics are going for over $200. So like, do you price it at 150 or which is what I was selling them at, or do you price them closer to market value and you just try to, maybe you're 15 to 20% the TCG player, low. And so I think that's kind of like this weird, or like the most recently sold. Sorry, I think that's kind of really what I've been struggling with is pricing.
yeah,
How do
and
you price cards that are competitive, but also not just price gouging people out of the game too?
yeah, and the way I see it is, I've said this with the release. I think there needs to be a competitive format released around Popper, and I know that that's not that much fun playing with commons and rares at first. I know it's not that fun. There's not as much of a card pool, but at least you actually get to have the cards in your hand. And if those hero blitz decks are what, 14 or $12, and they have
Yeah,
42 cards. Mitch, like you could open a bunch of boxes, right? And if you made a popper format around or around 20 cards, right? You made a 20 card deck and it's just a very very simple way of playing the game. You could put that in an envelope with, what, maybe 60 or 70 cent postage on it, and you could
true.
sell 22 cards with, a hero, a weapon, and 20 cards to play with to people, and ship it out. But the problem is that really hasn't been backed by Legend Story Studios or anyone, so people aren't really
Yeah.
excited to do that. And I do understand it's a dumbed down version of playing the game, but I think it's more of a substitute for the time being, because at the time of release,
Yeah.
literally, if that doesn't happen to where all the commons are just distributed out and people only play the game if they have Majestics and the legendaries, there's not going to be any gameplay, unless they have some other big
Yeah.
thing up their sleeves, which they probably do. There's probably some game plan, but it's uh
Yeah.
it's crazy to
I
think about.
I have been selling bulk, not selling bulk. I mean, I have bulk. I have more commons and rares, but
Hmm.
because I don't sell common and rares, I've even talked about like not even doing common or rare foils anymore, just because my time is just so limited right now on the side with trying to manage orders and site updates. And so, like, if you want bulk, I've had multiple people I'm just sending bulk to. Like, they pay for the shipping and you get it, you
That's
know?
awesome,
And I
man.
know early on, like, I was selling it like at 3 or 5 cents, depending on like the cards. common and rares, and so that's also a viable option too. You know, if there's another game store who wants to build those decks, I'm happy to sell them to them
Yeah,
because they can, you know, provide them. So it's one of those things. I would love to build decks for people. I just don't have the time.
I
Like
feel
I'm
yeah.
barely. So
Yeah, that would be
I
a
completely agree with
alternative.
you. If
Yeah,
people
just
want
send
bulk,
them the commons
here
and rares to a store
you
and
build it
say, "Hey,
yourself.
I
You're
opened all my boxes at release and I got all my cards that, those aren't really high profit margin as a store. It's just not worth your
right,
time labor-wise." But if there's a bunch of people who have foot traffic in that local game store and they say, "I want to play
sure,
Flesh and Blood." "Oh, we don't have any booster boxes, but we have this huge ass amount of bulk that you could just, go to town on."
exactly.
That is huge, and that's when I think then you have a format around those cards because at release those are going to be the most plentiful to where players feel that they are
Yep.
equal with one another and they can play. But I mean, another format is sealed, but again, nobody's really going to have the packs
No.
to open.
I would love to do sealed. I think they're even doing a pre-release event. I'm like, who's gonna open their first edition product for pre-release?
Yeah,
I mean, you're telling me I'm gonna pay $125 and you want me to open up the pre-release? I mean, I guess if they give some badass promos, but like even then, you know. So we'll see. I'm excited to. It, it's gonna be a fun like next few months. It's gonna be stressful for stores. We'll do our best to. I think a lot of us have the best intentions. But I do think that I was even talking to Rudy. He's like, it's going to be like when Magic blew up in the
mm,
late 90s. There are going to be people that are mad that they're late to the scene, that they're paying a premium now to get first edition product. You're going to be people that are going to be priced out, that are going to be frustrated, that are going to leave the game because of it. He's like, it's going to be potentially hard. And he's like, you just have to like strap on and hope, put on your big boy pants and hope for the best. He didn't
but
say that, but
well,
that's the gist of what I got paraphrasing.
if you think about it
So
too with him, I mean, negativity kind of is good in a way. I mean, it sometimes is amazing marketing, and I mean, he's firsthand account of that from what he said a
yeah.
bunch of times. So, I mean, maybe there is a sort of hidden strategy within that. I mean, but it is more of a concept, I think, of being too successful. But and it seems that that's right on. I feel that we're really excited more than anything, but it's more
Yeah,
of, I think, an analogy of we're all strapped in on this roller coaster that's just a chick 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 chick, and
exactly.
we're very excited for the experience we're gonna have, but we're also fearful for the drop of just that
We have no
fear
idea
of
what's coming after.
we have no idea. We're going into that tunnel into the roller coaster. We have no idea what the hell is in that tunnel,
On the
but
other side, yeah.
it's definitely gonna be a fun ride.